Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where I feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And today's episode is being brought by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, and implement processes and procedures so companies can grow and thrive. And today's guest is Brett Knopf. Hi, Brett.
Hi, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. It's great to have you. And for our listeners that have been listening, you know I'm very big on shout outs and really give acknowledgements to those wonderful people out there that introduce me to incredible guests. And today's shout out is going to Carl Meyer that I interviewed several episodes ago, and I'm going to include the link to the episode that we did together. We had a great conversation about economic factors and business, and I definitely would recommend that people will listen to that episode again. And Brett, both you and I know Carl, so thank you, Carl. And here we go. Yeah. So now, Brett, let's introduce you. So you are a performance coach, a business strategist with over 2 decades of experience working with businesses and coaching them on leadership, on sales, and other topics. And you actually wrote a book, which is called Everyday People, Extraordinary Sales Success, Sales Secret from Those Who Want Financial Freedom and Their Life Back, right? So you basically wrote that book, and I would assume you researched those that want their life back and those that are financially made it, and then you wrote that book accordingly?
Correct. I ended up interviewing several folks for the book itself, so you could hear direct from them what their strategies and systems are to have earned that financial freedom, that time freedom. So it was a really rewarding experience.
I bet. And today we're going to talk about that time freedom or the time management. And we're going to talk about basically studying what you do with your time so we can actually analyze it and make sure that we actually are very intentional about what we do.
Yes.
Good. So let's dive into it. So what is the concept in terms of figuring out or analyzing, doing a time study, basically? And by the way, you know, my background is industrial engineering. I've done a lot of time study throughout my career. But I want to hear from you how we can apply that to individual business owners or their staff and other leaders in their team. What is the concept first?
Sure. So the concept, and this came from my business coach, a gentleman by the name of David Meltzer, who's had a ton of objective success over the course of his life and career. He called it being a student of your calendar. And that resonated with me a lot when he first introduced the concept to me, because I found in my work, in my personal life, just in many different areas, there is a real lack of intentionality in what people do, why they do it. So rather than making a conscious decision of how you're going to utilize your time and how that fits into the bigger picture of what you're trying to accomplish in your life or in your business, you're just going through the motions semi-arbitrarily at best, blindly, and freestyled approach at worst. So I wanted to take that concept of being a student of your calendar and create a systemized approach so that myself and the people that I work with can lead themselves, they can manage themselves, they can evaluate themselves day after day after day in each of the individual actions in their calendar.
Great. So what is the actual system to do that?
Sure. So essentially, at the end of every day, I encourage people, and I specifically encourage people to write these things down. So I keep a journal with me pretty much at all times. And having your calendar out in front of you, starting to take inventory of what occurred that day. So the journal entry is titled Productive Actions for the Day. And I define productive actions as anything that directly funnels into what your goals are. And ideally, those goals are measurable, or anything from a personal development standpoint. So that can be things like meditation, exercise, education, anything that enables us to be better, more optimal versions of ourselves. So as I'm going through each of the activities and actions in the calendar, I'm giving myself the opportunity to say, here's what I had set as the intention and the intended outcome for this. Here's what the result was. Did it go well? If so, why? Did it not go according to plan? And if so, why? So going point by point, action by action, and evaluating it like that every single day enables us to identify what's going well and where we've moved the ball forward towards our goals that day, or where there are opportunities for improvement that the next time the same or similar activity arises in our calendar, we can then go about making the necessary adjustments that we see fit. So that's the overarching application and how I would go about doing that.
Okay, so give me some examples of actions that are in the journaling that are not productive and do not forward somebody towards their goal.
Great question. Something like scrolling on social media would be an example, unless you've cleansed your social media to only be information-based, where you're following people from a skill development standpoint or an inspiration standpoint. Now, I think social media can be used productively and constructively, but the overwhelming majority of us are just doing that and going back on autopilot. So that would be a great example.
But that's not on the calendar. I mean, that's a really good point, because, it is a time sucker. It's just like, you go, okay, I'm just going to check one thing. And then before you know it, it's half an hour, 45 minutes later. But that's not really on your calendar. So how do you account for that? Like, I like that idea, but what can you do in order to actually, I mean, obviously you have to be honest with yourself. Like, how much time did you actually get sucked into Instagram or whatever you're looking at, or LinkedIn or whatever, right? But how do we account for that? Like, if it's not on the calendar?
Well, when you're taking inventory at the end of each day, you hit the nail on the head. We have to be honest with ourselves. We are creatures of self-deception, and being able to critically evaluate yourself without judgment, but looking at things in detail and having that objective analysis day after day, action by action, enables us to know whether we did that or we didn't do that. Because I personally, I look at my calendar and there aren't unproductive things, because I'm very intentional in making sure that what is on that calendar is in direct correlation with personal development, or what my goals are from a professional and personal standpoint. So if there is something that is on there that I recognize shouldn't be on there, then I'll just remove it, and I won't go back to those things. But it's far and few between where that is the case at this point, because it's such a habit and a well-developed process and system at this point.
So I think it's better, it's not necessarily just evaluating your calendar, but it's really evaluating the day, like hour by hour, what happened, right? I mean, that would be part of the journaling. And I think, even sometimes I recommend to my clients, because I do that exercise, is actually journal throughout the day. Like, what did you actually do between this time and this time? So if you have a list of hours in the day, so from 8 to 9, this is what I did, right? Maybe I, engage in a conversation with a coworker or an employee that really it should have taken like 5 minutes, but it took me and 45 minutes, right? So that's unproductive. It's not on my calendar, but it can be unproductive if the conversation was unproductive. The same thing is that be honest with yourself and say, okay, at this time and that time, I scroll to social media, as opposed to just allocating like 10 minutes or 15 minutes, but I got sucked into something else or read some articles. So that can be also a solution, right? To journal throughout the day so you can actually keep that list.
Absolutely. And I think beyond that, making sure that you're not so stacked up in your calendar where you don't have those even 1 to 2 minute opportunities to evaluate and then set the intention for whatever your next activity is. I think that puts you back on autopilot largely. So I look at it where I want to make sure that I can evaluate, reset, and then go into the next activity in the right frame of mind to generate the intended outcome that I'm looking for. And, I think I haven't gotten to the point of journaling necessarily, but after each activity, that alarm goes off and says, okay, was this good? Was this not good? Am I on track? Am I not on track? So on and so forth. So that then there's intentionality behind everything going on day to day.
Absolutely. Okay, so what are other things that you feel like are not productive, not effective, that people can evaluate when they look at their calendar or throughout the day? We talked about, getting like scrolling social media. What else?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. I would imagine, I think you said that a lot of your listeners are leaders, entrepreneurs, and so on and so forth. So managing interruptions is a huge opportunity for leaders. People feel like because you're in a leadership position, you are supposed to immediately cater to whatever they consider to be urgent. And it's our job as leaders to help those individuals on our team understand the difference between urgency and not urgency. And the more that we can respectfully say that to people and coach them into understanding that I can listen to you right now, but it's going to be with not my full attention because I've got this, which is urgent, on my calendar. So if you'd like, you can have my split focus, or we can reschedule for a time where I can give you my complete attention. And I think that managing of interruptions, allowing other people to hijack our time is something that really throws off the course of your day and throws off your ability to be as efficient and effective as you possibly can be. So then understanding that, setting those expectations, and taking that inventory as well, because what I do is, if there are things that make me have to move my calendar where I determine they are legitimate interruptions, I'll just go back and I'll adjust that in my calendar so that I have an accurate representation of what went on documented there, so that as I reflect at the end of the week, at the end of the month, I can once again make the necessary adjustments as I see fit.
Absolutely, I agree. And so that's the hijacking the time, which is also either you created by getting distracted or by other people, letting other people hijacking the time. What do you think about, in terms of things that you evaluate that should be changed, in terms of not accomplishing really what you want? Let's say I allocated time on my calendar to write a blog post, as an example, but I got distracted, or I didn't really accomplish that, right? So that time got wasted. So how do you evaluate time that you feel like you wasted time, as opposed to really accomplishing something throughout that time that you allocated to do something?
Well, it's once again being honest with ourselves. Is the interruption something that is in alignment with what your goal or outcome is intended to be? And if it isn't, then you're going to have to understand how and why you let that be the case, so that you don't make that mistake moving forward. Because I like to operate with measured urgency. Let's call it. If there are things that I'm trying to accomplish, put timelines on it. Measurability within these things. So that blog post that you mentioned, if for whatever reason your time got hijacked by something else, you spent an extra 30 minutes at lunch or just talking to a colleague. Yeah, there can be a time and a place for that, but if that takes precedence without intention over that blog post, then you have to recognize that, and you will recognize it if you're doing the things that we're talking about here, and know that all you're doing by allowing yourself to be distracted, because there's infinite numbers of distractions available to all of us, you're just lengthening the time frame of which you're going to accomplish whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, assuming you're very detail oriented and clear on what it is you're trying to accomplish. That's, we put the cart before the horse a little bit here. That is the first step that needs to happen so that you can construct your days and utilize your time wisely and intentionally to go as directly and linearly towards that intended objective as possible.
Absolutely. So you basically align everything to what you want to accomplish. You have to have a very clear understanding of it. And then you align your actions accordingly. And then you can evaluate whether it works or doesn't work.
Absolutely. And it takes discipline. It takes a lot of discipline because it's very easy to be distracted. Like I said, it's just all around us, whether people or electronics or, the plane flying by the window here. People are very easily distracted, especially now more so than ever. So being protective over your time and being really vigilant over making sure that you're doing the things that are going to move you forward is, to me, one of the bigger hacks, so to speak, that we can lean into and understand and embrace, because yet again, that's going to lead to much more of a straight path and faster path towards whatever's really important to us that we're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The result of that will be definitely increased efficiency and doing things much better, and also feeling good about the fact that we are accomplished, because you don't want to come to the end of the day and feel like, what did I do today? I mean, that's a feeling that I hear it from people, right? Like, oh my gosh, the day went by and what did I accomplish? So I always like to say also that, you have to define success. Like, what is a successful day for you, right? Because you can look at a plate, at a glass half full or half empty, but what really defines success for you? So my advice will also be, don't be too hard on yourself if you're not like all of a sudden, like the whole day is like amazingly productive when you're trying to apply it, right? But celebrate those wins along the way. So as you're becoming more productive, you're actually celebrating that success by defining what success is for you for the day.
I love that. And that actually is the addendum to what I already discussed. So after I go through and evaluate the productive actions in the day, I then go into what was my biggest lesson of the day. I want to walk out of every day with something valuable that I learned that I can then apply and integrate into who I am, what I do moving forward. So biggest lesson of the day, biggest win of the day. So to your point, celebrating the smaller victories, and sometimes they're huge victories. It's like the accumulated compounded effect of all of the things you've done day after day lead to those bigger pops when perhaps you least expect it. So celebrating the wins of the day, and then biggest focus for tomorrow. So looking forward, what do I have on my calendar? What do I want to be the case? Should this be here? Shouldn't this be here? Should I move this up because it's priority? So on and so forth. And then I give myself a productivity score for the day. I keep coming back to that measurability. Now I have a goal on a weekly basis of spending a minimum of 50 hours in productive actions with a stretch goal of 60 plus. So if I'm giving myself a productivity score each day, I know whether I'm on track to meet that target for myself or I'm not, and I can figure out why or why not again. So with
and
all of
let me
those things,
clarify that, because I want to say
please.
something, because I can hear listeners right now, like they go, oh, 60 hours of productivity. Well, what about this guy's not having fun? But no,
I'm having a great time.
That's right, because it's the intention behind it. Because let's say my intention is to go kayaking, and I spend like 5 hours doing that and I accomplish that. Well, that is a win. That is part of the product. It's a productive hour because I had the intention to do it and I executed it. But if I want to go kayaking and then all of a sudden I got interrupted and now I have to do something else, well, I didn't accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. So now it's not productive because it's something else. So it's not like we are talking about 60 hours of like like working in front of the computer or whatever. We're talking about basically like 60 plus hours of accomplishing what we intended to accomplish. I mean, and correct me if you have a different viewpoint, but if your intention is to lie by the pool or sit by the pool and read a book, or go swimming or play with your kids for 3 hours, and you accomplished it and you had fun, then it's an accomplishment. It's a productive hour, right?
Correct. Because there's intentionality behind it. And frankly, I'm really glad you made that point, because it sounds like this is so rigid and it's so intense, and it's really not. It's liberating for what it's worth, because what you're doing, why you're doing it. So I encourage people to build out their schedule and build out those things around the other areas of your life and the other activities that fill your cup. Whether I have it in my calendar, play with the kids in the morning, play with the kids at night. It's in there. So I know that I've got this 10-hour period around that to accomplish other things that are more business focused. And then outside of those hours will be more of the personal development focused activities. But I have no shortage of fun. I have no shortage of time to do the things I want to do, because it is so structured and organized and intentional. And like I said, I find that to be freeing rather than restrictive.
100%. 100%. And that is also, it's one of the things that I use in terms of the time management is that I really look at, when I create tasks for the day, for the next day, how much time would that task take me? Because what I see that people do is they have a whole list of to-dos, which are great. But, if you actually, I tell them, okay, so allocate the number of minutes for each of the tasks and add it up. And when they add it up, it adds up to like 12 hours a day when they only have 6 hours to accomplish those, right? So then you're already going with a loss, and you're not going to win ever, because nobody can. It's kind of like filling a bucket that only holds 8 cups of water with 12 cups of water, and you figure out, like, why is it spilling? Well, that's why. So you have to really be intentional in terms of, and true with yourself, like honest with yourself, that this is the amount of time that it will take me to do it, and this is the time that I have available. How do I make the best out of it, right?
Yeah, no, you're spot on. That's when I have people and I lead them through their time management exercise, typically at the outset of our working relationship together. The first thing I have them do is make a comprehensive list of all of the actions that encompass their life and business, and breaking it down into daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, biannually, and annually. So right next to that is the estimated time frame for completion. And I say estimated because you don't necessarily know until you do these things regularly how long it takes. And to your point, adding them up in conjunction with how many hours you intend on working or just whatever your life encompasses. And then the third column is this a delegatable task or not?
Right.
Because I want that to be part of the thought process, especially for business owners and leaders and professionals, to understand what can I take off my plate to free up more time to either lean into other business drivers and goal drivers, or free time like the kayaking example you gave. So doing that allows you to just take this 360-degree view of what encompasses your life and how long it takes. And then you can start to plug those things in. So I call it the skeleton of your calendar. Whatever has the same time and place, just plug that in on a recurring basis, plug it in perpetuity. And then on a weekly basis, if not daily, you're taking the other actions based on what your priority goals are at the moment, and you're plugging them in, ideally putting the most impactful things early in the days, early in the weeks, so that you're knocking out the things, and even more specifically, the things that are not as much fun for you to do early and often, because that's going to move the ball forward as rapidly as could be the case.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And those are all very valid actions of what you need to do in order to actually get control over your schedule and what you want to do and accomplish it. Absolutely. Well, Brett, it's been a pleasure having you as a guest on this podcast with all this. And we've created a system here on how to actually be in control over your calendar, your activities, and hopefully be more productive. So if people want to contact you and know more about you, what's the best way of contacting you?
Best way, there are two, I guess, would be LinkedIn. You can find me at Brett Knopf, or my website, KnopfKnows Solutions. I love speaking about this and plenty of other topics. I love speaking to everyone about everything. So any way, shape, or form that I can be of service, I'm happy to. So please feel free to reach out to me.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun.
Good.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.